You can achieve success, gain fame, wealth, and admiration, and still feel completely empty if you have left God out. You can accomplish goals, accumulate titles, and receive applause and recognition. But if your soul isn't at peace, if your spirit isn't connected to the eternal, everything you built will sooner or later falter, because when God isn't the center, life loses its direction. We live in a constant race, pursuing achievements, status, security, and validation. But in this race, many people lose what's most valuable, their soul. We lose our peace, our clarity, and our essence. And the worst part is that many times we don't even know why we are running. Over the years, I have come to understand a truth that is soul-crushing but also liberating. No matter how high you climb, if you aren't rooted in the eternal, you will fall, and you will fall hard. Every day begins with a choice, to chase after the world, or to first seek the one who created it. The way you start your morning is not a minor detail, it is a spiritual declaration. When the day begins in silence, in connection, in surrender, everything changes. The mind becomes organized, the heart quiets, and the soul remembers that it does not walk alone. Starting the day with God is not a religious ritual, it's a vital necessity. It is telling life, I don't want to do this with my own strength, you guide me. Nothing sustains a life empty of purpose. Nothing fills a heart that has forgotten its connection to God. That's why, today more than ever, I say with conviction, put God first, and everything else will find its place. When you combine God's guidance with your own commitment to grow, there are no limits to what you can achieve. This union is the most powerful formula that exists, because you're not just acting with your own strength, but with an infinite force that supports you. And when that happens, everything begins to transform. Your health improves because you stop living burdened by resentment, anxiety, and guilt. Your body responds differently when your soul is at peace. Your mind expands, your intuition sharpens, your energy changes, and as a result, your finances, your relationships, and your decisions also change. Money begins to flow because you no longer act from a place of scarcity, but from a place of certainty. Opportunities arrive because you're in motion and aligned with the divine. Doors open because you're no longer waiting, you're walking. Your whole life is elevated when you choose the spiritual without ceasing to act, because God blesses those who rise up, those who trust, those who work with a clean heart and a burning faith. And what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable, because success without purpose is empty. Abundance without direction is confusion. Power without humility is a recipe for destruction. What good is having an empire if you can't sleep in peace? What good is filling your bank account if your soul is bankrupt? We know too many stories of people who had it all on the outside and ended up broken on the inside. Lives that were brilliant on the outside, but extinguished on the inside. That's why today I'm telling you straight. Put God first, because everything else in your life depends on it. He is not a spiritual ornament or an emergency option. He is the source of all truth, the root of all strength, the only foundation that will not break. Often it's taught that success depends on strategy, discipline, focus, and constant effort. And while these elements are important, there is something that cannot be missing: a spiritual root. When that root doesn't exist, everything else becomes fragile. You can have organization, clear goals, and determination, but if there is no connection to the eternal, everything crumbles when the storm arrives. God is not a decorative idea, not an option for gray days, or a resource for when everything fails. He is the source, the core, the power that sustains the visible from the invisible. When He is put first, life becomes ordered, not because the challenges disappear, but because you learn to face them from a strength that doesn't come from the ego, but from the soul connected to the divine. When you find God, you find yourself. One of the reasons so many people live confused, frustrated, or empty is because they have forgotten who they are. They have built an identity based on achievements, appearances, opinions, and external validation. They strive to maintain a perfect image while feeling broken inside. Some even develop physical illnesses caused by the emotional weight of living disconnected from their truth. The body begins to speak when the soul has been ignored for too long. Anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, inexplicable pains are all signs that the spirit is begging to return home. But when God is put first, everything changes. Because you not only recognize that there is something superior, you also remember that you were created with intention, with purpose, with a value that doesn't depend on the world. And from there, true healing begins. Because you not only recognize that there is something bigger, you also understand that every human being was created with purpose, with intention, with a calling that goes beyond the ego and the expectations of the world. You are not a coincidence. You are not an accident. No one is here just to survive. Every life has a divine design, an eternal mission that cannot be replaced or imitated. And when that mission isn't lived, the soul resents it. Anxiety is often nothing more than the internal cry of a life disconnected from its truth. It is the anguish of being busy with everything but the essential. But when life is aligned with the divine, anxiety dissolves little by little, not because circumstances disappear, but because the heart finds direction. You stop running aimlessly and begin to walk with meaning. When a person walks close to the divine, their way of thinking changes, their way of acting becomes clean, their way of speaking becomes more conscious, their decisions have more clarity, their relationships become healthier, and the paths that were once blocked begin to open in a way that seems impossible. But it isn't impossible when God is the center. Personal development isn't just about reading books or applying techniques. True inner growth happens when you live from a connection with something higher. Because it's not just about improving, it's about awakening, discovering the dormant potential that only flourishes when you walk with faith. God not only guides, God drives, lifts, and transforms. When He is given the first place, the correct doors open, deep wounds begin to heal, and what once seemed impossible becomes a testimony. A life close to God is not a perfect life. It is a guided, sustained, and aligned life, and that changes everything. Putting God first is an act of power, not of weakness. In a world that glorifies control, independence, and self-sufficiency, many see it as a sign of fragility, as if needing guidance were something to be ashamed of, as if asking for help were synonymous with failure. But what is stronger? Insisting on carrying everything alone, or having the humility to surrender everything to an infinite source? Putting God first is not running from reality. It is facing it with a different strength. It is recognizing that there are human limitations and that it's okay to have them. It is stopping the exhaustion of constant demands and beginning to walk sustained by faith. How long can you try to control everything? How much more can you resist before you break inside? Surrendering to God is not giving up. It is letting go of the ego. It is making space for the greatest love to enter. It is trusting that you are not alone. And that surrender doesn't weaken. It strengthens. It doesn't reduce. It expands. It doesn't extinguish. It ignites, because those who surrender with faith don't lose control. They gain direction. They become unbreakable, not because they don't have battles, but because they no longer fight them with their own strength. The divine order transforms your entire life. Faith is not an excuse to stay still waiting for miracles. It is the force that drives movement, because yes, the divine opens doors, but you are the one who must cross them. You are the one who must heal wounds, make decisions, change habits, and face fears. God doesn't do the work for you, He does it with you. And that is the most powerful thing, knowing that you are not alone in your process, that every step you take towards your transformation is taken, accompanied by an infinite force. But that step, that commitment, that can only come from you. True faith doesn't paralyze you, it activates you. When God is first, your decisions have direction, your relationships are purified, your businesses are transformed, your mind is renewed, and your priorities are aligned. It doesn't mean life will be perfect, but it does mean you'll have clarity in the middle of the storm, peace in the middle of chaos, and purpose in the middle of pain, because you no longer live from fear, but from faith. Laura discovered this when her whole body began to collapse. Doctors, treatments, diagnoses, nothing seemed to work. The pain was constant, the uncertainty suffocating. Her immune system was attacking itself, and every day was a battle just to get out of bed. But the most exhausting thing was not the physical pain. It was the silent terror of feeling alone, empty, and broken inside. One day, in the midst of exhaustion and despair, Laura decided to surrender, not to suffering but to God. She began to put Him first in her thoughts, her decisions, and her habits. She stopped fighting alone. She stopped trying to control, and something began to change. Her body didn't heal immediately, but her spirit did. And with that new peace also came the strength to move forward day by day, step by step. Today she doesn't live a perfect life, but she lives a life with purpose, sustained by a faith she didn't know before. Because when you put God in the center, even pain has meaning. Even in the middle of suffering, there is light. Believing in a divine force has nothing to do with religion. It is not a system of rules, a rigid institution, or a set of rituals. It is something much deeper. It is an intimate relationship with the invisible, with that greater energy that sustains everything, even when it seems like everything is falling apart. When you trust in that presence, the inner emptiness begins to dissolve, anxiety calms down, and fear loses its power because you no longer depend solely on control, exhausting effort, or external validation. This connection doesn't need temples or dogmas. It only needs an open heart. And when the soul opens to that force, everything changes. The feeling of being lost disappears. Clarity, certainty, and the calm of knowing that you're not alone arrive. You don't have to have everything to feel complete. It's enough to remember that you are already part of something bigger, and from there you live with purpose, with direction, with an inner strength that doesn't come from the ego, but from the eternal. Where are you anchoring your soul? In a bank account? In a body that ages? In a relationship that could break? In a title that could lose its value tomorrow? Ask yourself this question with a silent heart. If everything that gives you security were to disappear today, who would you be? Many have built their lives on pillars that seem firm but are made of glass. Success, image, intelligence, and strategy. And when life shakes them, everything shatters because they were resting on the temporary. But there is a force that doesn't move with the wind, a presence that doesn't leave when everyone else does, a voice that doesn't go silent when the world screams. When God becomes the center, no matter what falls around you, you remain because you no longer live at the mercy of the world. You live sustained by the eternal. Not all goals that seem brilliant come from God. There are goals that are born from the ego, from an inner emptiness, from an unhealed wound. Goals that seek to prove something, to compensate for a lack, to fill a void with applause or validation. And even if they are achieved, they don't bring peace. They leave a feeling of exhaustion and emptiness that is difficult to name. That's why it's vital to ask yourself, where does this desire come from? From a connection to the divine, or from the need to be seen? The most powerful goals are not the ones that inflate pride, but the ones that elevate the soul. They are those that are born in silence, in moments of deep communion, when the heart is aligned with the voice of God. And when a goal is born from there, it not only transforms your life, but also blesses everything around you, because it's not guided by blind ambition, but by an eternal purpose. When God isn't first, everything begins to fall into disorder. And contrary to what many believe, no matter how much you have, how much you achieve, or how much you strive, if your soul is disconnected, everything begins to lose meaning. You can have success but feel empty. You can run faster than ever, but in the wrong direction. You can surround yourself with people and still feel alone. Because when God doesn't occupy the center, priorities are inverted, the urgent is put first, and the eternal is forgotten. You live with haste, but without purpose, with achievements but without peace. And contrary to what the world promises, nothing external can fix what is internal. Everything changes when you change your foundation. So here is a clear invitation. Don't put the divine as a last resort. Don't wait for everything to fall apart to turn your gaze toward God. Don't seek Him only in pain, in loss, or in despair. Put Him first. Put Him in the center. Put Him as the origin of every decision, every project, and every day, and you will see how chaos begins to order itself, how noise becomes calm, and how emptiness is transformed into direction. Because when the divine guides, everything makes sense. And if you decide to do it, what's the worst that could happen? Losing your fear, letting go of control, feeling at peace inside, discovering that you are not alone. Ask yourself honestly, what could you lose if you dare to put God first? A true relationship with the divine not only transforms your spirituality, but it can also heal your mind, your body, and your story. It's not a symbolic act. It's not a feel-good phrase. It is a deep root that sustains you even in the midst of the most real pain. People who were trapped in anxiety, in depression, in insomnia, in illnesses that doctors couldn't explain, found relief when they stopped depending only on their own strength and began to lean on the eternal. It's not about an occasional prayer or a religious routine. It's about an intimate, constant, authentic relationship, a living presence that calms the mind, soothes the body, and renews hope. When God occupies the center, life not only improves, in many cases it is saved. Working on yourself is also a way of honoring God, because it's not enough to pray, wait for answers, and ask for signs if there's no real commitment to change from within. Faith doesn't replace personal effort, it complements it, and when they are combined, a profound transformation occurs. God can show you the way, He can give you strength, clarity, and intuition, but He isn't going to make decisions for you. He isn't going to get out of bed for you. He isn't going to face your fears, heal your wounds, or change your habits. That's up to you. And that is also spirituality. Looking inward, acknowledging what hurts, stopping the blame of others, taking responsibility, and deciding to heal, not from guilt but from love. Every time you choose to respond with patience instead of reactivity, you are changing. Every time you choose to get up after a mistake instead of giving up, you are moving forward. Every time you treat yourself with more compassion and less harshness, you are healing. And even if no one sees it from the outside, all of that is spiritual work. You don't need to be perfect to get close to God, but you do need to be honest with yourself, because faith isn't passive. Faith drives you, awakens you, and moves you, and that is where everything begins to transform. Seeking God is a decision you make with intention every day from the moment you open your eyes. Every morning you have two paths: to chase after the noise of the world, or to first seek the one who created that world, and what you choose changes everything. When you start the day with God, it's not that problems disappear, it's that you stop facing them alone. Your mind becomes ordered, your thoughts calm down, and your emotions find balance. There's a sense of direction that accompanies you, as if the chaos no longer has so much power over you. It's not about something magical, it's about a real connection, about taking a few minutes to align with the eternal before letting yourself be dragged away by the urgent. Because when God is first in your day, everything else falls into place with more clarity, more strength, and more peace. When you feel alone, when sadness crushes your chest, when anxiety doesn't let you breathe, have you ever really tried to talk to God? Not with learned words, not with repeated phrases, but with an open heart, even if it's broken. When you're sick, exhausted, empty inside, have you tried closing your eyes and simply saying, "I can't do this anymore, help me"? Because something happens in that moment. The soul aligns, the mind calms, the body responds, and everything inside you begins to remember that you aren't disconnected, that you aren't lost, that you are part of something bigger. The source that created you is still there, and when you speak with it, even through tears, something settles. Maybe not everything is solved immediately, but you change. Your energy changes, your breathing changes, the way you feel the pain changes. And that is not a coincidence. It's because everything is connected, the body, the mind, and the spirit. And when one part reconnects with the divinity, all the others begin to heal. Personal development without God is like building a building without foundations. You can build many floors, decorate the walls, and install shiny windows, but a tremor is enough for everything to come crashing down. And the sad thing is that many people live that way, accumulating achievements, knowledge, and goals, but without a real base to sustain it. God isn't at odds with your growth. He is the root that gives meaning to every branch of your evolution. He is the one who shows you which direction to grow, not just how much, because true development isn't just about reaching further, but about going deeper, about healing what no one sees, about transforming yourself from the soul and not just from appearances. There are wounds that no book can touch. There are voids that no achievement can fill. But when your growth is built on a real connection with the divine, every step has purpose, every fall brings a lesson, and every advance fills you from within. Developing hand in hand with God doesn't mean you stop fighting, it means you stop doing it alone. Talking with God doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need perfect words or sacred phrases. You only need sincerity. You can talk to Him while you brush your teeth, while you're driving, while you walk alone down the street, or while you make yourself a coffee. You can tell Him out loud or in silence, "I don't know what to do. Guide me. I'm tired. Give me strength. I don't understand this process, but I trust in you." Because God doesn't need a specific language. He needs your truth. And in the midst of daily chaos, talking with Him can become your refuge, your recharge, and your internal compass. Affirmations like, "God, I am ready for you to show me the way. I trust that your plan is better than my fear," or "I surrender to your wisdom and act with faith," can completely change your energy, your mind, and your day. The key is to do it with an open heart, not like someone who mechanically repeats something, but like someone who truly desires to be guided. Prayer is not a monologue. It is a living, intimate, and transformative conversation. It's not about reciting empty phrases or fulfilling a ritual out of habit. When was the last time you spoke to God with an open heart, without filters, without fear? To pray is to talk to Him as you would talk to the person you trust the most. It is to cry if you need to give thanks even without understanding, to surrender without shame, and to ask for direction with humility. But above all, it's to learn to listen, because God is not silent. He speaks. He speaks in the form of peace when everything is in disarray. He speaks through a phrase, a sign, a person, a conviction that pierces your soul. And if you were to stop and listen more instead of just asking, daily prayer not only changes your circumstances but also changes your character. Because the more you talk with God, the more your way of thinking, reacting, and loving is transformed. And little by little, without even realizing it, you begin to become more like Him. When a person puts God first, their life takes a different direction. They are no longer carried away by the pressure of quick success, by the temptation of easy money, or by the desire for empty recognition. They don't compromise their values for a promotion. They don't betray their peace to fit in somewhere they don't belong. They don't change their essence to please the world, because they know that their value isn't in what they have, but in who guides them. Those who live with God as their foundation don't need to impress anyone. They don't seek to fill voids with achievements or validate themselves with numbers. They understand that their purpose goes far beyond having success to be admired. Their success has a higher motive to serve better, to impact with love, to inspire with integrity, and to reflect through their life the light of something much greater than themselves. And that shows. It shows in the decisions they make, in the boundaries they set, in the way they treat others, and in how they stand firm when everything shakes. Because when you are connected to the divine source, your success is no longer a goal to feed the ego, but a means to transform the world from a place of love, truth, and purpose. Don't despair if things don't arrive at the moment you expect them to. Don't blame God for results you haven't seen yet. If you haven't sown with consistency, if you've abandoned your discipline, or if you've procrastinated on what you know you need to do, God is not a magician who appears to solve what you aren't willing to face. He is guidance, strength, and wisdom, but He isn't going to do for you what you can and must build yourself. Sometimes doors don't open, not because He has forgotten you, but because you haven't knocked with faith, with effort, and with humility. Don't confuse waiting with passivity or faith with immobility. Life isn't transformed only with good intentions, but with daily steps aligned with purpose. God gives you the vision, but you are the one who must walk. So don't give up, don't compare yourself, don't abandon your process out of anxiety. Keep sowing, keep growing, and keep trusting. What seems slow today will be a testimony tomorrow. Walk hand in hand with God, and you will see how little by little everything begins to align. The pieces that seemed lost begin to fit together. Difficult moments are transformed into sacred lessons. Wounds become wisdom. Not only your life is put in order, but also the lives of those around you and those you love most. Because when you heal yourself, your energy changes, your presence is elevated, and your love begins to touch others without you saying a single word. Trusting in God doesn't mean staying still waiting for miracles. It means walking with faith while you do your part. It means trusting in your own process of transformation, even when you don't see immediate results. Don't rush yourself. Don't punish yourself. Just move forward every day with the certainty that you are being guided, strengthened, and sustained from the highest place. Always remember this: when God is first, nothing in your life comes late. Neither opportunities, nor people, nor answers. Everything arrives right when you are ready to receive it. How are you? How do you feel after listening to this message? Do you think this video can help you see life with more clarity, more energy, and more faith? I invite you to share it in the comments. Tell us how you are going to begin or see your path from now on, what you are going to change, what you understood today, because here there is no judgment. This channel is a safe space where many of us are walking with the same desire to grow, to heal, to improve, and to live from a higher purpose. Here we build a solid, conscious community full of real people who support each other from the soul. Thank you for being here, for choosing to listen to yourself, for giving yourself this space for reflection and connection. If this video brought something to you, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Maybe that gesture will be the seed that another person needs to begin their transformation. And I'll close with a quote from Louise that summarizes everything. We are in the process of change, and every thought we have is creating our future. I send you a big hug. May God accompany you and sustain you in every step.